ICQ Podcast episode 298, Ham Radio 2019. Hi there, fellow Hamtown Radio enthusiasts, and welcome to this, our 298th episode of the ICQ Hamtown Radio Podcast, supported by our monthly and annual subscription donors. In this episode, Martin M and MRB is joined by Chris, Mike 0 TCH, Dan, Kilo Bravo 6 November Uniform, and Frank, Kilo 4 Foxtrot Mike Hotel, to discuss the latest Hamtown Radio news. Myself, Colin M6BOY, rounds up the news in brief, and this episode's feature is a feature from Ham Radio 2019. Well, as always, it's our donors that keep us advert free. No one-off donors this episode, but we'd like to again obviously thank our monthly subscription donors who provide us a base to pay our way. And you can do your bit to make sure we never have to take advertising from matches and seeds and razors and all sorts of things by visiting icqpodcast.com/donate. Or as we always say, send us the value you find in the show, and anything you send is always greatly appreciated. I would like to thank John Baggett, Kilo 2 Bravo Alpha Golf. John got in contact with us regarding our request for an AMSAC contact, and that looks like it's worked out really well. So thanks, John, for giving us a hand in relation to that call out. Well, now let's join Martin, Chris, Dan and Frank to discuss the latest Hamtown Radio news, including UK HamSats revealed and 8 metres for the USA. As always, guys, hope you enjoy.
The ICQ Amateur Ham Radio Podcast, serving the amateur ham radio community fortnightly since 2008.
Hi guys, welcome to episode 298 of the ICQ Podcast and tonight's round table. Tonight I'm joined by Mr. Chris Howard, M0TCH. Hi Chris.
Good evening, how are you doing?
Not so bad. That's 3 nights running, you know. You have to say
it is another one of those weeks. We have weeks where it's pretty quiet, and other weeks where we're doing committee meetings and the recording of the podcast and meeting up with the club. It's funny, isn't it, how these weeks go by?
Yeah.
Yes. The next one, I think, will have 4 weeks, isn't it? Because it'll be that, and it'll also be the club talk as well. So yeah, busy.
Yeah, busy. But we get there. We also have Mr. Dan Romanchik, KB6NU. Hi Dan. As I say, good to see you tonight. You're looking well. And,
Same here.
Yeah, and 4th of July. We normally lose you on the 4th of July, but this is the 3rd of July, so we managed to get you.
Yep.
Yeah. And also from your side of the pond, we have Mr. Frank Howell. Hi, Frank.
Hey, guys. Good to be here.
Yeah, I should have given you a call sign, K4FMH. And you know what, boys? I never give my call signs out, do I? Well, Colin does.
No, that's true.
Yeah. My call sign is Mike 1, Mike Romeo Bravo, and for those of you who have been on Fusion recently, I seem to have been wearing it out, so we'll talk about that later. Okay, Mr. Martin Ruffalo can't make it tonight. He's been attacked by a computer upgrade that's gone horribly wrong, so unfortunately he won't be with us tonight, but we'll get it sorted for another time. In the UK, the amateur radio exam statistics are out for 2018, so nice to have them released. Some interesting stuff here, and we were kind of discussing this earlier, Frank and Dan and Chris and myself. Frank, you're into statistics, I can't say it, statistics, and these are quite interesting, I would have said.
Well, they are, and let me applaud kind of the United Kingdom for actually having some demographic information. As Dan and I have commented before, we've kind of got out of that business with our FCC licensing database. So I was glad to see some of the breakdowns of this, and it looks like a good report. There are some things that to be dour about. Small group of women, just 9%, but that can certainly be improved, but it can be improved almost everywhere involving amateur radio, especially. So I thought it was a very good report. There are some issues there, as we discussed in the rehearsal, about pass rates and things like that. And it'd be interesting to get Dan's take, since he's more active in the teaching end of the license exam material than I am. But I think it's a good report. And I think you have to do this to look at your syllabus, what you're trying to do, and that sort of thing. So I applaud it.
Yeah. Well, as I say, some interesting stuff here. Dan, your thoughts on this one?
Well, so what we talked about before was the 96% pass rate for the intermediate test, and we were throwing around whether it's what's the cause of that, whether it's the test is too easy or not. And my thought on that was, well, it's not too easy if it meets the requirements. And so, in fact, if the test does meet the requirements, then this is great, right? Because it says you got some good teachers and some good students. The one statistic I referred to that kind of hit my eye was the fact that the decline in the number of foundation candidates is averaging about 2% per year. That doesn't seem good to me.
No, that's quite worrying, Dan. That really is worrying. Yeah, I think that we've got to do a bit more of a promotion on how we promote amateur radio to the general public. And I think that's where our biggest problem is. If we're not promoting to the right people and the right groups of people, then we won't get people to do the foundation. But you're 96%. When I used to teach the intermediate course, and Chris has done it with me, when we taught intermediate, we certainly found it a real fun course where the students enjoy themselves and they're so fired up by that point in time and they've got a license, so it all went quite well. Chris, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, I'm not surprised that the pass rate is that high, 96%. I mean, you're doing this for it's a 6 week, we do it over 6 weekends. So, it's a significant investment on people's time to come along and take the course and then take the exam. So people want to pass, they're not going to come along and want to fail after, investing that amount of time. Imagine the foundation people, over 1 weekend, it's not quite so much commitment, but certainly the intermediate. And I don't think, it says here that the ESC say that that pass rate does not suggest the exam does not discriminate sufficiently well between candidates. Well, I think that what should matter is that people the right standard. If 96% of people have got to that standard, then that's not a bad thing. I don't think we should be arbitrarily saying only this percentage of people can pass. So that's kind of my view. There was also talk about a proposal to have a single exam that goes straight to the full exam. So rather than today, we've got 3 tiers where people have to do the foundation, then the intermediate, then the full. There is talk about, and there's a proposal around having a single exam to cover all 3. Now, I can sort of see where some people might want to do that. It might be quite a tough exam. It does talk about being a bit like the old RE, the old radio amateurs exam. I can sort of have some sympathy for that. I quite like doing. I did mine. I did 3 exams as I had to, but I can see perhaps some people being frustrated if you got a degree or something in electronics, or you got a maybe industry experience in working. I can see having to do the foundation and the intermediate and the full. It might be a little bit slow for some people, and although I do think that not everyone would, even at the foundation level, not everyone knows everything. People always learn something, whether it's the licensing conditions and the law, legal side of things, or it's propagation, or I think everyone learns something on that, because I don't think any, unless you're an amateur already, I don't think there's anything that you wouldn't know that spectrum of stuff. But I've got some sympathy for people that may want to do the whole thing in one go. Although I do think the practicals and things, I think all that should still be part of it.
Yeah. Well, I actually did my RAE, because I did the RAE before the 3-tier license system. And in fairness, I would have much preferred to have done the 3-tier license system. And I think about this as kind of, when you take driving lessons, they teach you to pass the driving test. They don't teach you to drive. Yeah, when I passed my test, I passed all the electronics and I passed with quite a reasonable mark according to my instructor. However, I'd had no practical experience of doing this, and I floundered around for a while, and I still think that the 3-tier license system is the right way to go, in all honesty. I don't know if any of you want to comment on that.
Well, I think maybe what you need to do is have some kind of procedure or something where you still would have to pass all 3 tests, but that you could do it all in one go, like we can do here.
Yeah, I'll give you that, Dan, and that will be fair. I mean, I did all three of the American exams in one morning. Yeah, and there was no practicals, so I was able to do that. But I was also an amateur at the time anyway, so I'd had the practical experience as well.
I think just come back on this one. I think that we do make it very difficult here in the UK. I do like the way the American exams work. You can turn up. You don't have to have all this thing. You have to apply in advance. You have to have, it's all very strict. You have to measure the room. You have to draw a plan. As an examiner, you have to draw a plan of the room and submit it and measure the space between the desks. I have to say, when you and I took the American exams, Martin, it was a much, much more relaxed experience. And, if you fail, you can just take it again. It's a much, a much more pleasant experience, frankly. And I think we could learn from that in the UK. I do think there's maybe a mixture of the two. I think the practicals are a good thing. And I think that because the American exams are all different, so you're sat next to somebody else who's got a different paper to you, there isn't that. You can't cheat, and therefore you don't have to be quite as strict with the way that the exams are run. But I think we can learn from that. I think here in the UK, I think we can learn from that. I think we should be able to make it a lot less strict than what it is in the UK at the moment, and still have the same result.
Yeah.
Martin, let me add this. On page 4 of the report, there's some nice little trend graphs that let me just comment on them. While there's a decline in foundation candidates, there's a slight increase in intermediates and fulls over the same time period. And you look at the pass rates, I can understand why this committee has a concern about the intermediate, what they call the discrimination ability, because it's high. But the pass rate for the foundation license is up about almost 90%. So the foundation, progression rate or acceptance rate or pass rate, whatever term you want to use, is just a little bit behind. So their expectation would be that the foundation class might have the highest pass rate, followed by an intermediate, followed by the full, because there's a huge gap between in the pass rate of the intermediate and foundation from the full license. So I can kind of understand a little bit of gut rationale that, hey, we're not being tough enough on the intermediate. On the other hand, I agree with everything you guys have said, and the positive experience that I think perhaps that you guys had over here on this side of the pond has maybe been part of the promotional aspect of the license here, as opposed to, we have this, and if you want it, you've got to jump high to get it. A little different culture maybe for that. So with this page 4 set of charts, I think when you look at it, it's been very difficult to get the full license compared to the other two. I mean, it's just dramatically different from my view of things. So I think this is a good thing to think about. As Dan said, what are the standards for the 3 licenses, and what's the mechanism that we use to gauge who should pass to get those licenses? It's a good thing. It looks like there is a little drop off of newcomers, into the foundation program. And I would suggest, as we've said many times on this podcast, reaching out in the makerspace and promoting amateur radio in that venue for younger people in the UK is the way to go.
Yeah, and the other thing we should consider is the exams should be there to test people and give them a sense of achievement. But when we set exams for people to do, we should be setting them to get people into the hobby. Now, I don't believe in making it so easy that, as long as you turn up, you get past the exam. But they should be enablers. They should be getting people in. If somebody's interested and really interested, and they've got their foundation, they'll move to the next level. And a lot of us are technical on this podcast. However, and let's be brutally honest, I've had dinner ladies. I've had children of 9 and 10 do the foundation course. I've had people in their late 80s saying, I don't think I could ever do it. I've never done an exam in my life. We shouldn't be putting them in a position of feeling bad, because we should be welcoming them if they have the right attitude and understanding and meet that level requirement, I would suggest. So that's my summing up, really.
Yeah, we could spend the whole 2 hours on this, couldn't we?
We could, Dan. We could. So I'll sum
We could,
up
in
with that.
fact. I was looking at the report and I'm picking out other things, but I think we should move on because otherwise
Yeah.
we'll be here for a while.
Yeah. So our
But
next,
it's a report that our listeners should take a look at no matter where they're located, because I think you can learn some things about amateur radio in the United Kingdom from it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So moving on, our next news story, using AIS metadata to monitor propagation in the 2 meter band. Now, AIS is a marine standard, I believe, and the ships and that transmit data at about 162 megs. And by monitoring this, you can get a feel for whether the 2 meter band's opening up. Dan, what do you think?
Well, I think this is great for these guys, the D4C expedition group, because they're on Cape Verde Islands, right? So that's a perfect thing for them.
Yeah. And as I say, often you don't know what the propagation's like on 2 meters. So, this is a nice little tool, could be. I can imagine Edmund getting all excited down on the south coast, wondering whether he can work France, Germany, Belgium, and that sort of thing. But hey, that could give him a very good clue. Frank, your ideas on this one?
Well, this is interesting. It's another indicator. I gave a talk several months ago to an area club on propagation, and I tried to do something a little different. And I divided things into what I call modeled estimates of where propagation should be open according to what we know about propagation. And there's a lot we don't know, but we do know a fair amount. And so modeled estimates with the VOCAP and many of the other programs will tell you certain things are open. That's one genre of indicators. The other one is a collage of empirical measurements. Whisper's a very good one. The Reverse Beacon Network was another one. And I think using AIS along with the similar program for airplanes, might be a good one. But this is a good one. It's an empirical measure of origin destination for that circuit. Now, one thing to keep in mind, just because this doesn't show that there's an opening between your origin and some desired destination, might just mean that there's no plane there. There's no beacon there. And so you have to just keep that in mind. It's a positive confirmation. It doesn't confirm the negative because there's no beacon there. But it's a very literate and progressive way of going about it. So I think it's a good deal.
Yeah. Well, as you said, you've got to test ways of getting on the air. I'd be honest with you, Chris will agree with me, London is very quiet on 2 meters. And yet I've had a phenomenal amount of calls on 2 meters in the last 3 or 4 days. FM, I know it's 2 meters FM. But as I say, we living inland, we're not likely to pick up this ship data, I would suggest, Chris, would we?
I suspect where we are, we're nowhere near the sea, so it's unlikely we're going to be picking up any of that data here. But it gives an indication, doesn't it? I mean, even if it's not, we're not that far from the sea, we're not that big a country. It gives an indication if people that are by the coast can pick up this traffic. That's the 2 meter. I mean, I think it's quite clever. Someone's found a frequency that's fairly close to the 2 meter amateur frequencies, and thought, well, actually, that might be useful. A way of studying propagation. My only slight concern is the legality, because it's not an amateur frequency, so are we actually allowed to do it? That might be, I think the Wireless Telegraphy Act in the UK means we're not allowed to listen to anything other than amateur or public broadcasts or citizens band stuff, so that might be a restriction, but that legality aside, I think it's quite clever that you can, someone's thought, well, actually, yeah, okay, well, what's close to where we are, and does that have some automatic, is there people, ships are all over the place, and therefore this could be a useful thing to think about. So I think, hats off to them, really.
Yeah. Well, at least not everybody in every part of the world is covered by the same licensing rules as us. And the fact that we're not supposed to listen to things like aircraft and ships and that sort of thing. But I know there's a lot of people do it. And I'm not going to condone it because I don't want to knock on the door later.
Well, in this case, though, it's what you'd be looking at is a map that aggregates the data. You wouldn't be listening to the transmission yourself, so that might be your good defense, Martin.
And there are websites, and I know there are. For example, the APRS website does show AIS data and other data as well. So you say that's an aggregation, isn't it? I suppose. Just like you can get websites that show you aircraft using the sort of virtual radar, using the ADS-B signals from aircraft. So yeah, it's I guess it's a similar sort of thing, isn't it? Not direct communication.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. 16-year-old ham radio satellite builder is in the press. A young lad from Spain has got himself in the newspaper for working on building a satellite. What do you think, Chris?
I think well done. I mean, was it 16 years old? I think he's. I think it's amazing. Frankly, he's obviously been inspired. He talks about. He was inspired about the age of 7 about the International Space Station. I think he's that's become a reality, isn't it? He's got this what they call it pocket cube satellites. So pretty impressive. Well done to the lad. I'm sure he's got a great career ahead of him in whatever he wants to do.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting situation, and I'm quite impressed. What's your thoughts, Dan?
Tell you, it makes me feel like an old guy.
You're not that old.
It's like I was saying in the rehearsal. It's amazing what kids can do, and we really ought to find a way to let them do it. And if we can find a way to do that in ham radio, so much the better, right? So, that all kind of works together.
Yeah. Your thoughts on it, one, Frank?
I'm going to make an assumption that Julian Fernandez has had an Elmer or two, because let's face it, he's a 16-year-old CEO of a company, 16 years old. And so I'm not saying someone did it for him, but I think it shows the power of having an Elmering network or culture. And we've seen some other young hams do amazing things. And this one is right in there with the best of them. And he's got a vision that is exceptionally mature. I'm like Dan, I'm getting old guy syndrome here. 16 years old, and he's got a vision for satellite communications involving providing the internet to rural areas. I'm going to say it one more time. He's 16 years old.
Yeah, I think we're living in a different time, guys. Let's not beat ourselves up about it. We're living in a different time. But I spotted a television program, and I very, very rarely watch television. And the reason I don't watch television is that most of these reality shows are all about how can I stitch you up? How can I knife you in the back to get to the top? I'm going to blow you out. I'm going to work against you, being nasty and horrible. And then suddenly on BBC Two, there was a program on about 4 nights running, and it was regarding family brain. It was called a family brain game, I believe. And it was families working together to solve problems. And it was just so interesting. And the family that won it, eventually, the family that won it was from Scotland. 2 little girls, a dad and a mum. Now, the dad was a maths teacher, but the kids were as bright as a button, but they were enjoying it. They weren't, it didn't look like a chore. They were working out problems and solving the problems, and I think, we need more of that, personally. But maybe I've gone off the topic there.
No, I think you're spot on. And this article, which will be in the show notes, he's been working on this for over 2 years.
Yeah.
This isn't just a little idea he had, here recently. So just amazed.
Yeah. Phenomenal what he does. Right, moving on. New 8-meter band, which is 40 megs, ham radio band sought in the US. Well, Ireland got very similar allocations earlier in the year. So let's go to you, Frank. Would you be interested in this 40 meter?
Very well could be. And my observation is it hit me very quickly that it'd be in an ISM, Industrial Scientific Medical allocation, currently that's under the NTIA. National Telecom and Information Administration. So it could be an easy thing to reallocate internally to the U.S. I see it as makerspace, digital modes, and that kind of thing. And, to the extent we have kind of like, again, the days of AMers that complained about the sidebanders, on 80 meters. Well, we've got some people complaining at all the digital growth and FTH killing the hobby and so on and so on. To the extent that this is a band that might be populated mainly by digital signals, it might be a very good enclave for them. So I would be definitely interested stuff off my workbench that worked in that new band.
Yeah, I think any new bands are interesting, regardless of what they're going to put in them. And as I say, with Ireland having a similar allocation, this could go everywhere. What do you think, Dan?
I think this is interesting. I did a little research on the petitioner, Michelle Bradley, KU3N, and she runs. I didn't get the whole story, I don't think, but she runs this group called the REC Networks, and they actually do a lot of LPFM stuff, which was kind of amusing too. But I'd like to actually interview her a little bit and see what her motivations are for proposing this. But I think, and this is like a half-baked idea, so take it as it is. But I think it'd be good to come up with something that would be simple and inexpensive to use, and it could be digital, could be whatever, could be sort of a modular kind of thing you can plug together to do different functions. I mean, something like that would be perfect for this kind of band, and the goal would be to make it cheap enough so that newcomers to the hobby could buy it inexpensively and actually do something with it. And like I say, it's kind of a half-baked idea, but that would not only be a good thing to use this band for, but some of our other VHF, UHF bands that aren't quite as used as they could be. So, if that's sort of the goal here, then I think that's a good thing. If not, it's just going to turn into another band that's not used at all. So that's my rant for today.
Well, I encourage you to interview her, Dan. That would be a great interview.
Yeah, I think I will.
Yeah, that'll be good. Certainly be good in the use of the band. Chris, we haven't got this allocation, and I don't see Ofcom making it, or the RCB making any noises yet.
We haven't. I've no idea. We haven't. I've no idea whether it's currently used at all in the UK by anybody else. That was allocated to anybody else. I look at the frequency allocations table to see if it is. But they're asking for quite a small sliver of that. Was it 40.51 to 40.7 megahertz? Why not? If it's not being used by anybody else and we're asking for a tiny piece of it, well, why not? Obviously, like you say, we're not going to get a black, unless it becomes very popular, we're not going to get a black box rig that's going to be running on 8 meters anytime soon, unless it becomes around the world. It's economically viable for the manufacturers to do that. But a kit, someone could produce a kit or a transverter or a little kit like maybe a QRP Labs type company could make a kit for it if there was enough interest to operate on this, and it's going to be narrowband stuff like you were saying, maybe digital stuff or CW, maybe FT8. But it'd be interesting to see, with 6 meters, it's obviously between 6 meters and 10 meters, isn't it? And propagation there, it's not, what is it? It's not quite in HF, is it? It's technically it's in VHF, but it's at the very bottom of VHF. So it'd be interesting to find out what the characteristics are of that particular band, and we're not going to find out until we play with it. So why not? If there is an option to persuade the FCC to give us a little bit of spectrum to play with, then let's give it a go and let's see what we can do with it.
Yeah, agreed. So I think everybody's in agreement on this one. 8 meter band seems to be very, very interesting to everybody.
Guys, if you look at the RF allocation chart for the U.S., it's so small that in that very detailed chart, in land mobile, and fixed, they just have a footnote that says ISM 40.68 plus or 2.02 megahertz. So it's so small among these other kind of commercially viable entities that I'm not sure a lot of people know it's actually there. So it would almost be nothing to allocate to this.
Yeah. Well, as I say, let's hope it happens, and it'll be interesting to see what happens propagation-wise once it's set up. Moving to our next news story, and this one's sort of shaken the amateur radio community quite heavily. The 144, 146 megahertz CEPT proposal update, and don't let anybody tell you there's no traffic on FM 2 meters, because I've been extremely busy since I've been back from Cyprus with people working me on 2 meters, so and digital modes and that one too. So in fairness, I'm reading what I read here. The German guy's saying, look, don't rush out and panic and shake the tree too much, because you could get people that you may know in high places batting for you, but not understanding what they're batting for, and finding out that they're diluting the IARU's input. So, Chris, do you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen various petitions, some of them not very well worded as well, on various websites for this. I think the answer is, I think there's two ways that the first thing is, this is a draft proposal that's going to go potentially into an agenda in a meeting in a couple of years' time. So it's at the very, very early stages, and this just might be a negotiation tactic. I believe it's an aerospace company in France that's proposed this or put this forward, and I think it's for use potentially with drones. And from what I've read, this is not people have been saying, oh, this could be dangerous because they've got repairs into it. From what I've read, this is not a life-critical solution they're looking to use this with. This is not. They're not going to be. If this goes down, we're not going to get things falling out of the sky. From what I've read, but for me, the way that we need to stop this is by supporting a national society. So ARRL, RSGB, the ARC, WIA, all the national societies will all be. They're our voice with these things. That's what we pay our subscriptions for. These are the guys that go to those meetings that lobby on our behalf. So we should get behind those guys. This is the whole reason. Well, not the whole reason, but one of the reasons we are members of those societies, so that we can add our voice. Give them the way, give them the legitimacy of us being members, and giving them the voice. So I think that's the first thing. And secondly, the band. I'm sure that the reason that they are, or the people that want to use this are saying, is because they're potentially saying, well, look, this is not used. We're monitoring it, and we're in very little traffic. So, guys, if this gets, I'm sure the likes of our regulators like Ofcom and FCC are monitoring the spectrum. If they're not seeing any traffic, well, it's difficult to justify keeping it. So, and I'm as guilty as anybody else for not using it. But I think we need to, perhaps, if we're given something, we should use it. Otherwise, we're going to lose it. So that's my thoughts, Martin.
Yeah, you're dead right. Use it or lose it is the thing. Frank, they haven't said anything about it happening your side of the pond, but I suppose if it happened in Europe, it would only be a matter of time, wouldn't it?
I think so. And there's, on the one hand, if we were sitting around talking about soccer teams and saying who's going to win a particular match, then we'd have our opinions about who the stronger team is. And, there you go. You ultimately will see what the final score is, right? Well, in that analogy, I don't think this is going to come to fruition. On the other hand, I've watched in the state legislature here in Mississippi, an expert witness give a report with a fairly lengthy monologue. And the chair of that committee turned to the reporter who was recording this and says, my legislative bill should be what he said. I was the person who had given the monologue, and what I actually said became the bill. And my point in saying all that is, how you get something passed is you submit it to the proposal making or the controlling body. So the point is, I don't think it's going to happen. But step one toward it happening has occurred, and you can't ignore it. Now, that's my 2 cents on it. So it has to be what Chris said. There has to be a loud reaction. And the thing I said in rehearsal to this, what's their stated need for it? And I'm guilty of not having read, their petition and proposal. But it seems to me it would be very difficult for them to make an argument of why they need this in France.
Well, I think that I personally, this is a personal theory. I think that somebody at the last minute has put in a request for these frequencies. I think if you stir up enough interest and excitement, and everybody's going to then go up in arms, they will be given another block of frequencies, and they'll probably get a better block of frequencies than they would if they'd have just said, hey, can we have a few frequencies here? So I'm being a bit I don't know, guessing on what I'm thinking, but that's what I'm kind of going. Dan, are you any thoughts on this one?
So I blogged about this. I blog about everything, right? And the guy on Twitter then came back to me and says, well, okay, so what can we do about this? And I said, send a check to the ARRL. And really, that's what we can do about it. One thing that, there's been a number of petitions now on the net, put on the net for people to sign. And, while I kind of like the idea of sending petitions, all these cautionary things from the RSGB and the ARRL have an element of truth. I mean, we should all be speaking with one voice on this rather than sending a bunch of internet petitions. So that's why I say my advice would be to send the ARRL a check.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, with all what you guys have said. And at the end of the day, let's let the professionals fight this. That's what we join the national societies for, so that they can look after our interests. And yeah, the people who've done these petitions, they have their 5 minutes of glory, and they probably meant it in the right way. But it would be very easy to dilute the professionals' approach by going off with the wrong information, potentially. So, I personally don't think this will happen, but it's one of those things, I think. Moving on, the ARRL is, it says amping up code proficiency. Dan,
that was actually my headline. I changed the headline. The original thing was just said, the original email was sent out with the subject something like ARRL reinstating CW Proficiency Awards or something like that. I forget. But anyway, the idea here is that they are reinvigorating this program, and with the help of Vibroplex, oddly enough, and the certificates are going to be actually have a Vibroplex logo on them, and Vibroplex has given the ARRL some indeterminate amount of money to sponsor this program. And it's good. I always get a lot of questions about people who said, how to do this, and they'd like to be able to do this, and so from that aspect, it's good. There was a little bit of controversy in this. One of my friends, who's I call him my CW technician, he said to me, he says, Dan, he says, I can't copy 20 words per minute by hand, and it says in the material that you have to copy it by hand and then underline 1 minute of perfect copy. And so I sent an email to Norm Fusaro here at W3IZ. I said, this needs to be clarified. Do you actually mean people have to write this by hand or what? He said, well, no. He says, what it means is that it can't be aided by any kind of machine like a computer or a code reader. So by hand means you can type it in and copy it that way. So you don't have to actually write script or cursive or whatever. You don't have to do that by hand. So that's a little...
It means by ear, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Human ear.
Because, like I said, my friend, he says, and myself too, I actually copied the field day bulletin. And I was trying to copy the 20 words per minute transmission, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't actually copy that, write that fast. And so it's a good thing I recorded it, because then I played the recording back and I typed it in, But yeah, so it's not actually by hand, but it can be assisted.
Yeah, that sounds good. Chris, you've done a bit of Morse. What do you think?
A tiny bit. I'm not a Dan. I've done a tiny bit. So I got my 5 words a minute certificate. And I'm surprised. I was surprised there wasn't one. Obviously, it sounds like this is something that previously was there and then it came back. And I think it's a good thing getting recognition for it's part of, it's one of the reasons perhaps to learn more. So you can put on your wall, look, I've got a certificate, I'll learn more. And the people that don't, your friends that maybe don't know you into this sort of thing, or that don't necessarily know Morse code, you can say, look, here's my proof that I know it, sort of thing, and it's a good thing. So I think it's a great idea. And I think it encourages people to improve. So I think it's a brilliant thing. Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that it's been sponsored by a Morse manufacturer is a good thing. It means that people haven't got to pay money to do it, and they get a little bit of promotion for their products. Well, that's not that bad a thing, is it really? So I think it's a good thing, and let's hope it takes off. All those folks do it.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of people like the wallpaper, and this could be very good. But Dan, don't hold your breath. I ain't going to be doing it anytime soon.
Yeah, I'm expecting you all to get these certificates now.
I'm sorry, I failed miserably. Frank, what's your
the other thing that was brought up is what's next? Are we going to have DXCC brought to you by Elecraft or by ICOM or all that stuff? So I don't know. We'll have to see how that goes. But
we tried to get worked Howard Mickle by ICQ, but that didn't work. So,
well, he was an employee, and that was the wrinkle that.
Yeah, sorry, Frank, I wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't.
Well, but Dan raises the point I was going to make. I am totally for this. I think this is terrific. It is a reality of a technically nonprofit has to generate revenue to pay for things. And so, there's an interest in Vibraplex as a well-known maker of CW equipment, just to put that umbrella term there. And so I don't see any issues with it. People bring us the magazine every month through advertising and that kind of thing. But Dan's point's well taken. There was probably a limit to where you can look like professional golfers, where they've got one vendor on their sleeve of their shirt, another one on their left chest, another one on their hat, and another one, provides bags. There's probably some limit to corporate support for these things, but nevertheless, I think it's a great deal.
Well, European football teams are even worse, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
For sponsorships.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's good. It's good. So the proficiency certificate for anybody who does code, something you can work on. Now, Chris, I moved this not into ours, but then Chris moved it up again and said, hey, we really ought to talk about this. So, go on, Chris. Walmart parking lots on the air 2019. Over to you.
Well, I think this is the fun one, that sort of finish on. I think it's a bit of a contest. It's the weekend that this is released. So if you're hearing this Sunday morning, got a chance to get involved. So this is the second year this is taking place. Remember, it's Sam Walton, the guy that founded Walmart in 1962, and basically you get to operate radio from a Walmart parking lot. It's a bit of fun. I don't think it's not a serious contest as such. I think it's mainly for operating satellites, because Walmart car parks, if you're not familiar, and those, by the way, they're not in the States. Walmart is a huge supermarket chain. Everywhere's got a Walmart. I'm sure Dan and Frank will attest to that. Generally got huge parking lots, huge car parks, and I quite like some of the special some of the terms. So, for example, you hear we talk about chasers and we talk about what they called again in SOTA. I forgot to say, didn't I? Activators and chasers. So this is similar. You've got associates and shoppers. So a bit of a fun. There's some fun terminology. I'm just going to bring out some of the special awards you can get. One of them was for if you made the aerial from parts bought in that particular Walmart, and I don't use that. I think that's quite a nice one. That's called the MacGyver Works at Walmart Award. There's you got to go on the website. The website is wmplota.org, and they also tend to do quite a lot on social media. So look on Twitter. I think there's a hashtag as well with that same tag as that same name. But there's things like you can get an award for having a QSO while eating chicken obtained from a deli. That's called the Great Value Award, for example. There's lots of quite fun ones. You can get the All Roy Awards, the activator with the most Twitter posts of their dog from the parking lot, that sort of thing. So it's a bit of fun. It's happening the weekend this podcast goes out. So have a look on Twitter, have a look on the website, and see if you can get involved. I think it'd be a lot of fun. So it's a bit of a shame there's no Walmarts in the UK, really.
Yeah, tell us about the zombie thing.
The zombie one. Let me find the zombie one. I think this is where if you go to a closed Walmart that's still, one that's closed down but the building's still there, they call that a zombie. If you go and work from there, you get a zombie award. I think it was quite a fun one as well. So it's kind of it's a bit of fun. I quite like the idea of it, really. So this is a hobby we're in here. It's about fun. So why not go and enjoy ourselves? It is a contest. You can submit and you can get awards and things. But have a look at the website. It's quite funny. Actually, some of the awards on there are quite funny. So have a look on there. Here you go. You can get a zombie multiplier, zombie apocalypse multiplier. There's all kinds of things on there. It's quite fun, and I fully approve of it, really, to be honest.
Right, but if we in the UK don't have Walmarts, but we have Asda's, do you think we could tip up an Asda car park?
I reckon. Security might be wondering what the hell you're doing, but I'm sure, this is not sponsored by Walmart. Walmart are not kind of involved in this themselves. Although if you're going to do this, it's worthwhile perhaps just having a chat with the security guard, mate, just so she knows what you're doing, or the guys working there, and do go and buy something while you're there. Walmart do own Asda in the UK, I believe so. Yes, yeah, they think they bought.
Oh well, I think that would qualify.
So, yeah, I think so. Why not?
Go on, Dan. Are you going to be out pounding the brass on Saturday at Walmart?
Unfortunately, no. I have something else I need to do, but I love this idea. I really do. When I heard about it last year on Twitter, I just went crazy over it. I thought this was the greatest thing. Yes. And like you say, it is sort of satellite oriented. Those satellite guys are kind of crazy too.
Yeah. Well, this is adding a bit of fun back to our hobby, and the hobby should be fun. I've said to people, if you don't enjoy it, you don't do it. So the hobby has to be fun, and it shouldn't be taken too seriously in many ways. Frank, your thoughts on this one?
Oh, I think it's, as we would say here in these here parts, it's a hoot. And the fun part is the key. I think as Chris elaborated, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of something that is somewhat similar in that it's just for fun. The Strange Antenna Challenge. It was something that was popular about 10 years ago. And when I was in Atlanta, we used to participate in that with Atlanta Radio Club. And what you did is you tried to make an antenna out of an existing object. And so you had a lot of extension ladders that were aluminum. We actually had a guy who took a plastic tube that you ship fluorescent bulbs in to keep them from cracking. He sealed it up and segregated it in half and built a saltwater dipole, and it worked. So in that sense, the Strange Antenna Challenge, here's a Walmart parking lots on the air. I just think it just be a lot of fun because in the U.S., you can see all walks of life at a Walmart. And to the extent that amateur radio kind of cuts across every strata of society, it'd be a lot of fun. I probably won't be there, but when they put pulleys on their big light poles so we can string dipoles between them,
there you go.
I'll be there.
Well, I've got to honestly admit, guys, and I failed Dan and Frank, because when I joined you in the States and I went down to Chicago afterwards, I never went to a Walmart.
Oh.
That's it, Mike. You got to go back. Sorry.
Yeah.
In 2 years, if you guys make it back in 2 years, I will personally identify a Walmart or two, and we'll have to stop and have a meal in the Walmart deli.
Oh man!
And try to make a satellite contact from the parking lot.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah, sounds good to me. It sounds good to me. We met a lovely lady at the Waffle House, didn't we, Chris?
Waffle House, yes, in Ohio, yes.
Yeah, in Ohio. We went out for a cup of coffee from the place we were staying, and we went for a walk. And the two nearest options were originally McDonald's, and then we spotted the Waffle House, and we went into this Waffle House, and we must have been there an hour and a half, nearly 2 hours, and they weren't busy, but there was a steady tick over, and the lady who was cooking the waffles was chatting to us, and the young waitress kept coming over, and they got us to wear party hats and
it's good
all
fun.
the bits and pieces.
This was Wapakoneta, which is the birthplace of Neil Armstrong in Ohio.
Oh yeah,
because we were actually there.
Yeah.
We went to. If that's me, I pronounced it wrong. We went to we went there because it was on the way back from Dayton. We were heading back to Chicago. It was kind of halfway.
Yeah.
And it's a nice place to go and visit the museum there. And so we're overnight, and we popped into. Is it how you say it? Wapakoneta? Is that right?
Wapakoneta.
Canada. Sorry, Wapakoneta. There you go. There.
Yeah.
Y'all come.
So the young waitress, the poor young waitress says to Colin, she says, "Hey, you got a strange accent." And he says, "Yeah, I'm from Detroit." And she, "Yeah, they do talk funny up there." That's gospel.
We don't talk that much differently than they do down there. But you know, here's another funny thing. You know what we sometimes call the Waffle Houses?
Go on.
Awful houses.
Awful house. Yeah.
I think we can promote. I think we can give that one a tick in TripAdvisor. I think we could give them a 5-star rating. To be honest,
I think we can. We really got hospitality there. I mean,
Yeah.
Okay, we're hospitable people anyway, and the lady who was cooking, she told us that pretty much her life story, but she'd been with them since she left school. She'd been a manager. She was now taking it easier in her later life, and she'd moved down, but she was a great chat, and lovely lady, and all the staff were. And Edmund ended up actually, because he tore his party hat, and they didn't have any more party hats. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So they went and got him a Waffle House sun visor, one of the ones they issue staff for. So there, Edmund, that's yours.
you're going to get me in trouble. You're going to get in trouble, Martin. I think Edmund's still
Another
watching
itinerary.
this,
Hey, you know,
Another
and I don't know how much
itinerary.
this want to leave in the show, but you know, there used to be a Waffle House right off the freeway exit that you took to get to Hera Arena. And that Waffle House used to do a big deal for Hamvention. They had shirts. I got a shirt. I got a Waffle House shirt. They did shirts. They used to give the hams like little doodads. Like one year we got little flashlights and stuff like that. I mean, it was a big deal for that Waffle House.
Yeah.
And everybody in there on like Friday and Saturday morning, they were all hams.
Yeah.
Listen, for the next time you make it over, I've got another, besides the Walmart, I'm going to organize, especially for Edmund, a visit to a Burger King. They will give him a crown.
All right.
Excellent.
Yeah, that'll be good. So that really finishes the news stories and a bit more. Let's find out what you've been up to since last time. Dan, do you want to go first?
Oh, sure. So, you know, a field day. Over the last month, I've been really working on field day. I was the captain for the second CW station at our field day outlet. I in the past I've done the GOTA station, and what happened was I recruited another guy to do the GOTA station this year, but he became kind of incapacitated. So I had to recruit yet another guy to be the captain, and I spent a fair amount of time at the GOTA station. But we had perfect weather for field day, and the bands were not bad either. And all in all, it was a great field day here. So that's my big news for ham radio over the last month.
Sounds like you had fun there, Dan. Sounds like you had fun. Frank, did you do field day?
Oh, I did, as a token ARRL person for the Delta Division. I'm not elected, so they don't get points if I show up, but I try to go out and visit. And I visited Scott County, Mississippi Amateur Radio Club. They're between Jackson and Meridian, Mississippi, just off I-20. And they had a wonderful little setup at a local park. They do a Morton, the city of Morton, day in the park, and they're a guest of the mayor. So they have a really good connection there with local folks. So I did that for field day this year, and it was just terribly hot. And I don't do terribly hot very well. So I only made that one location. I did not go over to Vicksburg, where my club I'm a member of was joining in with the Vicksburg club to do field day. But I was involved with field day. Also have been working with ARRL with Riley Hollingsworth on the official monitor program. We've got a something I came up with Gerald Youngblood a couple of years ago, a possible way to help identify sources of malicious interference for the FCC. So I've been doing a little bit of development work there. Been doing some, and I'll leave this intentionally vague and obtuse because we'll announce this in the coming weeks, some development work with Martin and Colin on another program that'll be related to the ICQ podcast, but really separate. Then still working on Workbench, made some lattice cubbyhole work for some of my USB test equipment, such as a vector network analyzer, a UCR or LCR meter, my Vigilant analog discovery tube, things like that. So some of the piddling work there to finish off a Workbench. And that's probably about it. I think I've only been on the air a couple of times with the little Zygu X5105 QRP rig. So not a lot of ham radio activity as far as transmitting RF.
Yeah, well, you sound so you've been really busy, Frank, anyway. So sometimes we do a lot and very little RF going out, but sometimes you have to do the background work. Chris, what have you been up to? Because I've been away, so what have you been up to while I've not been around?
So I've been, not a massive amount. I was over at HS Belfast while you were off Mars. Myself and Tim and Matt were at HS Belfast a couple of weekends ago, so that was the usual fun. That was actually during, I know the last feature was about HS Belfast, but we operated the special event station for D-Day, so I operated GB75 D-Day, and we actually had quite a nice little paddle patch on there for a little while. Once it got on the cluster, suddenly everyone wanted to work us, so that was fun, and the usual sort of things on there, and more certificates, etc. as well, so that was good. We met a few of the different guys up there. It was quite busy. It's the summer now over here, so it's pretty warm, and it means the ship tends to get a little bit busier with the holidays and things. So that was interesting. We spoke to quite a few interesting people there. A couple of pilots from one of the American airlines had a chat with us for quite a long time. It was quite nice, talking about some of their radio equipment they have on board the aircraft that they fly. What else? I have yet to start work on my kit that I got from KLP Labs when I was at Dayton. So that's still sat in its bag. It's still sitting there, and I do need to get on with that. So at some point in the next few weeks, although it's nice weather, so I'm thinking actually maybe I can just sit on the bench for a while and I'll have some fun operating for, until maybe that might be a winter thing. Perhaps I don't know just yet, but I do need to start work on that at some point. And then today I bought a new radio. I went out and I bought an ICOM 7300. So I've got a lot of reading to do to figure out how to use it. I've had a little play with it. It seems to be pretty good. Touch screen. First time I've had a radio that's touch screen and the like. Looks to be pretty good. So, but there's a few things about it I've not figured out yet. So I need to have a little look in it. Well, I'm sure Mr. Rothwell will say we should never look in the manual, and I might have to go online and things and just maybe do a little bit of research. But it seems to be fairly intuitive so far and quite a nice radio. So I may actually take it with me actually the next time we go on to HS Belfast and see how it works up there as well. It might be interesting.
Yeah, sounds very interesting, and be nice to see one up and close. I don't actually think I've actually had my grubby hands on one, and I know they've been out.
I might bring it up to the club actually. Although Monday we're not there. Next Monday we're going to be doing some. We're going to be out and about, aren't we, with another club? So maybe not for that. We'll see. Maybe I'll bring it along to that as well. We'll see.
Yeah, that'd be good. Well, I haven't been round much because Colin did the last podcast, although I did 73s from Cyprus. I've been on Cyprus for 2 weeks. Took Mrs. B on holiday. She deserved it. And so we had great fun. We interestingly landed and got to our apartments about 10:30 at night, around about 10:30 at night. I then had a barbecue and junk sale booked for the next morning, the next afternoon rather. So I ended up meeting up with Richard 5B4 AJG, who took me along to the club barbecue and junk sale. Now, you say, well, surely you're taking your wife to a junk sale, that's not on. Well, it kind of is, because a junk sale was a very smaller part of this whole day. And on Cyprus, amateur radio is as much a social hobby for the wives to just go and have a natter and a drink and a meal while the guys talk radio. And there were as many wives there as guys, so it was quite good, and some children. I then got invited to the Tuesday lunchtime lunch, and I said I can't do that because it's Carol's birthday and I'm going to take Carol out for her birthday, and they convinced Carol that she should go to the Cypriot lunch. So we went for the lunch. I managed to do a talk for the club because I felt I really ought to put something else back in, so we did that. Followed by another Cypriot lunch, and then I spent some time with Richard and his lovely lady Christine on the Thursday before he came back. Now, really, the guys in Cyprus are really hospitable. Great, and I know Richard's coming over to join us later in the month, and we'll see him at our club. But I'm in danger of forgetting people, and this is not a derogative term, but I only know you as Russian Mike. Russian Mike, who lives in Coral Bay. There was Greg. There were the two Johns, Adrian, Norman, and Richard, and I'll say wives as well. So great time there for me. Since I've been back, don't let anybody tell you 2 meters has been dead. I've been in the car a fair amount, and I've had so many 2 meter calls all of a sudden. And Mr. Roffa and I managed to get the internet linking working on the Fusion repeater, which has been quite good. And interestingly enough, Chris, HMS Belfast called in on the CQ UK group today. They were worldwide.
Okay.
And I worked HMS Belfast. Now I could do it simplex from where I am, but they came up, so that was good. So all
I wonder
in
if that
all,
was Omar, because I know Omar's big into digital nodes.
No.
He's big into that stuff.
yeah, no, it wasn't Omar. It was some guy up there. I should have got his name, and he had got a hotspot, and he brought that live, and one thing and another. So yeah,
Cool. Okay.
so that was good. So that's what I've been up to. Not as much as some of you guys, because I've been sitting
Actually,
taking it easy.
Martin, that reminds me of something else done, actually, which was PyStar. I should have mentioned this. I know PyStar is something we featured before. I've been playing with the Raspberry Pi, and I've finally installed PyStar, so I've got that going. So with my my DV access points, so tiny bit of DSAB listening to as well recently. So that's another one I've been doing, which is good.
Yeah. Well, D-Star's the only one I haven't got working at the moment, and I might actually. I'm in the mood to fix things at the moment, and I'm quite positive. So I might get my D-Star radio out and try and fix it. So apart from that, yeah. Okay, so we've all been very, very busy. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for joining us tonight, and I think it's been a great evening. I'd like to thank Mr. Chris Howard, M0TCH.
Cheers, Martin. It's been the usual fun and games.
Yeah, great fun. Mr. Dan Romanchik, KB6NU.
Well, it was a great evening, even though Martin Rothwell wasn't with us today.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame when Martin's not around. He does get me into all sorts of trouble, especially when we're not on air. And I'd like to thank Mr. Frank Howell, K4FMH. Thanks, Frank.
Thank you, and good to be back. And it's I kind of missed the big cheese himself. Let me just say this from this side of the pond. I'm sure Dan agrees with me. We got off to a bad start a couple of 100 years ago, but we kind of mended fences. And I just want to say thanks to the United Kingdom and Great Britain for being our longest and oldest allies as we celebrate our birthday for the United States. We're recording on the 3rd, I think. And so by the time the podcast drops, all the firecrackers will have been spent. So let me just say to acknowledge our friendship across the pond, both as countries as well as here on the podcast.
Yeah, but I told you, Frank, I'm not painting that house white again. We burnt it once.
Well, unfortunately, we probably used slaves to do it the first time, which is a darker and sadder chapter of our history. But I do want to thank you for being friends here on the podcast across the pond, as well as our annual birthday.
Yeah, and we wish you all the best, guys. And that's one of the great things about being a part of the ICQ podcast is we are international. So I enjoy that. Right, I'd like to say 73s to you all. This is not the end of the podcast, but just the end of this section. So 73, guys.
7-3.
73.
Keep your amateur ham radio podcast advert free by donating less than a length of coax. Visit www.icqpodcast.com/donate now. For all the news, links and information, visit www.icqpodcast.com.
And now it's time to have a look at the news in brief from me, Colin M6BOY. We start with news in the UK. Cathryn Mitchell, Mike 0, India Bravo Golf, who's the Academic Director of the University of Bath in the UK. She's received the 2019 Edward Appleton Medal and Prize for her pioneering research in tomography and data assimilation that revealed a completely new perspective on the ionosphere in response to extreme weather. So the announcement read that Cathryn Mitchell innovated a completely new Earth observation technique by adapting medical tomography to image the Earth's ionosphere, thus revealing the dynamics of the near-Earth space environment. Use of GPS satellite signaling as a source for space weather tomography through a new time-dependent mathematical inversion algorithm has given us the first global scale view of the ionosphere in response to space weather storms. So the award is a namesake for a gentleman called Edward Appleton, who won the 1947 Nobel Peace Prize for Physics for his 1924 work that proved the existence of the ionosphere. Of course, radio amateurs participate in listening tests during the 1920s that proved the data regarding how radio signals propagate. So we'll pop a link to this, of course, on icqpodcast.com, but congratulations, Cathryn, on your findings. As you're about to hear in our feature, Ham Radio 2019 has just finished, and a little bit of unfortunate news in relation to visitor numbers. It looks like numbers are on a downward trend. They've logged 14,300 people attending the show this year, which is down about 1,300 from 2018. But more worryingly, back in 2009, roughly about 3,000 people more attended that show. So whilst they're saying that visiting the show is at very good value, and they're obviously appreciated with the numbers that actually came to visit, they would obviously like more people to come along and support this, which is probably the biggest event in Europe. So the 2020 event, for those of you who get your diaries out now, is taking place on the 26th to 28th of June. That's already been decided, and certainly if you're thinking of going, we can highly recommend the area of Lake Constance, which is very beautiful as well, if you want to extend that trip to Ham Radio 2020 into a further sort of tourist visit of the area. So certainly, guys, have a look at that there. Keep an ear out for AM3 Whiskey Romeo Golf. It's the World Roller Games, which will be taking place, and the Mike Delta Victor DX group will be keeping this special event station on the air from this weekend through to the 14th of July. Special award will be made QSLs by Logbook of the World and EQSL. I've checked, and I don't think there's any radio activities taking place on rollerblades, but you never know. So check this out as a link on ICQ Podcast as well to how you can find out more about what they'll be working for AM3 Whisker Romeo Golf. Well, now we head across to our features episode. Ed Durant DD5 Lima Papa was at Ham Radio 2019, finding out some of the things that were different and being publicised down at Dayton, Ohio. So I say, hope you enjoy what Ed found at Ham Radio 2019. Hope you enjoy.
And now what you've all been waiting for, this episode's feature from the ICQ podcast.
A couple of weekends ago, Ham Radio 2019 took place in Friedrichshafen in Germany, and Ed, DD5 Lima Papa, was on site there looking for some news that was different from the recent trip to Dayton, Ohio. He starts off with chatting to Comica Power, who are manufacturers of antennas, about their range of antennas and what they're doing in the European market.
This is Ed, DD5LP at Friedrichshafen. and I've managed to catch up with Mrs. Lopez, who is the CEO of Comunica Power. They're a company that do a lot of accessories for radio equipment, antennas, power supplies, power meters, duplexers, switches, etc. And they have some new products here. A lot of the antennas I'm looking at are actually flexible, so either on hand portables or on cars, you've got options. But what I'd like to ask Mrs. Lopez is, first of all, when did Comunica Power start to do anything for amateur radio? Because originally you were in commercial radio supplies, yes?
Yes, hello Ed, and thank you for this nice interview. It's correct, your idea. Comunica starts 3 years ago, specialized in professional radio accessories. But certainly because my father was a ham radio enthusiastic, and since many years ago I'm coming every year to Friedrichshafen. Maybe more than 30 years ago, I remember also in the show was in an old messe, so I'm seeing how the ham radio is changing during all this time. And I'm really familiar about ham radio accessories, antennas, and this kind of equipments necessaries for a nice communication, no? So I decided also to develop some models of antennas, interesting for ham radio, special models for HF, also for dual bands, and several other accessories like you focused before, like power supplies, SWR meters, duplexers, triplexers, and a wide range of accessories.
Well, we're stood in front of the display here, and the table is literally full from end to end with different models of antennas and different other equipment. Okay, so your background from your father was in amateur radios. The Comunica company, though, started up originally in supplying accessories to commercial radio, PMR, as we'd say. Is that correct? And then you moved into amateur radio?
But not only PMR, we are supplying accessories for Tetra, 3G, 4Gs, several professional bands, and also not only antennas for these purposes, also speaker microphones, microphones, and a wide range of personalized solutions. We develop accessories accordingly to the necessities of our clients.
Okay, let's have a quick look around here. I'm looking at several dual band, so VHF, UHF antennas. I'm looking at some HF mobile and portable antennas. But what I have seen, and when I'm comparing, for instance, to other suppliers, is that your prices tend to be a little bit lower, in my opinion anyway, but the quality is certainly still there. Everything I can see here looks actually very solid.
Thank you, Ed, for your opinion. Is for us very valuable. We produce antennas with top quality materials. We focus in reliable models and also reliable quality. Also trying to get good balance between quality and price to push the ham radio, and we want that people has the opportunity to get a good antenna with competitive price.
Where would our listeners go to if they want to find out more about Comunica Power?
You can visit our website. We invite you to visit comunicapower.com. Comunica with K, not with C.
You also attend some other ham radio shows during the year, is that correct, in Spain?
Yes, in Spain. September, it will be a nice ham convention in the city of Avila. And it's also a good opportunity to visit our booth and to check all our models, our quality.
Okay, so that's great. And the other thing I'd just like to highlight to our listeners, a lot of our listeners are from the US, a lot from the UK, and then the rest of the world. I believe you're one of, if not the only, mobile antenna supplier in Europe. And the majority of other suppliers that we see coming in are either direct out of Japan or the US. So this is actually a European supplier. So I'd actually ask our European listeners to check out Comunica Power because, first of all, they're a local company, but also postage costs less from Spain to somewhere in Europe than it does bringing something in from abroad. You do have an agent in the UK, I believe?
Yes, we have an agent in the UK.
It's Lamco, I believe,
yes,
yeah?
Exactly.
And anywhere else in Europe, or do you just deal direct for the rest of Europe?
We have several dealers around Europe, and our product is available in several European websites.
I know the links to those other dealers are actually on your website, so that's all very good. Okay, well, thank you very much for the short
pleasure.
interview, and I wish you luck at Ham Radio Friedrichshafen and ongoing.
So nice to see you, and thank you very much for this opportunity, Ed. My pleasure.
I'm here with Hans Christian, SM6ZEM, from the Swedish National Society, and I'll let him give the name of that because I don't think I would pronounce it correctly. So first of all, Hans Christian, how do you pronounce the name of the Swedish National Society?
What we say is SSA, and that stands for Sveriges Sändare Amatörer. Sveriges Sändare Amatörer in Swedish. The Swedish National-wide Society for Radio Amateurs it is, yes.
Okay, and you're displaying here at Friedrichshafen. I guess you've done this for many years. So what is the aim of having a stand here at Friedrichshafen? Are you looking for new members in the Swedish members that happen to be visiting? And how is the membership in the association in Sweden? How many people do you have?
We are almost 5,000 members in Sweden in the SSA, Sändare Amatörer, and altogether listed are, I think, 14,000, but many of them are not active, of course. But in SSA, I think that the majority of the members are active on the bands, and we are here every year. I have been in charge of our stand or above here for 4 years now, and it is a top event for at least for me every year, and we are meeting so many people, so many new friends, and the main purpose is not to get new members, but we do get, I got one just 5 minutes ago, but it is to show what we have here, and also what is very frequent, answer questions. What can I do in Sweden? Can I transmit with my equipment? And if I stay for a longer time, what are the rules? Those are common questions that we have to answer. And we also are marketing the Swedish country, the Scandinavia all together. Many people who come here, they want to tell us, I've been there in Sweden, we've been there last year or some years ago, we went up there, and they tell me about places in Sweden I've never been.
Oh, wow. That's really nice. So it's almost, being one of the family representing the country, not just representing the amateur radio, but representing the country, the nation as well. You were telling me a minute ago that you personally are pushing to try and attract more members by making the society give something back, if you like, to the amateurs to make it valuable. I mean, I know every society has expenses when they take part in things like the WRC or the IARU or ITU meetings. But you were telling me you have arranged some discounts for Swedish amateurs with some suppliers in Sweden so that it makes it attractive to be a member?
Yes, that is one of the examples of the benefits to be a member in SSA. So I have made a deal with some companies which may results in that the members get a discount when they purchase from them. That is one example. And we are also very keen on to get young people in, and we have increased the age when you pay a lower annual fee for the membership. And we are also very concerned to get new amateurs in Sweden, not only members in SSA, but it is maybe more important to get more licensed amateurs. And for that purpose, we give local clubs economical help and each time they arrange training to get a license. We support them with a sum of money, and it is approximately €300 to each club for each of these events.
Oh, that's very good. So, I mean, what you're underlining to me is that the association actually is out there supporting amateur radio, trying to expand amateur radio, not just the members of the association, but in general. And you're saying that's important. Why is that important? Why do we need more amateurs?
Well, for me it is quite obvious, and it is to make the hobby to continue.
Yeah, because I think this is exactly the problem that every single country has. The the amateur population is getting older and simply dying. And if you don't replace it with new amateurs, whether they be young or, just coming into retirement or whatever, the more amateurs we have, the more respect we have from the government, etc. And I think it's great what you're doing here, and it's something that I think other associations do here as well, so it's quite a common theme. And you're saying you're also pushing to try and get youth in. Is there anything special for youth happening in Sweden this year?
Well, yes, we are arranging events every year, and we're also sending young people taking part of the international events, and it is almost, it's always, I would say, popular to take part of this. So we got youth enough, and we are sending them to train the trainer program and things like yes. I think that we have the activity for youth is quite good in relation with our country, or the relative small country, that we are doing quite well.
And are you sending somebody to the youngsters on the air in Bulgaria this year?
Yes, we are.
That's a prime example of a Region 1 youth-related activity. Something I should have asked earlier. Are there multiple classes of license in Sweden or only one?
Unfortunately, only one. And that is a dilemma, because the SSA, we are working on and on constantly to get a primary license, some kind of that. But the local authorities in Sweden, the PTS, have not yet answered well to that. But we will continue, because that is quite common in most countries, I think. And some countries do have more than 2 levels, 3, I think. Yes, but we have only one.
Let me, on behalf of ICQ Podcast and our listeners, wish you all the success. Let's hope if I see you next year at Friedrichshafen, you'll be telling me, we've now got a second license class, or we're on the way to negotiating that. That would be nice, and I think that would definitely help to get more people into the hobby. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It was our pleasure.
And Ed met up with Carl from Yaesu as Yaesu continued to develop the range for the 101D.
Talking to Carl, G7AFT from Yaesu, and he's got some news about the FTDX 101.
Yes, hello there. Yes, we have a new version of the FTDX 101. It's the FTDX 101 MP, which is the 200 watt version for transceiver. And it also includes a few extra goodies. We have a VC tune unit, which, as you may know, is a front end pre-selector for the 101. On the 101D, it was only available on the main receiver and as an additional option for the sub receiver. On the MP, it now includes it on the sub receiver as standard.
And you've been pointing to a little box on the top as well. What's that?
Right. So that's the new LAN unit, or a network remote control unit. So it plugs into the back of the 101, and then it will allow you to then, via the internet, control your station remotely.
Okay, and why isn't it internal?
That's because the LAN unit can be used with a range of other radios. So you can plug it into such as the FTDX 9000, 5000, 3000, 1200, even the 450 it will work with.
Oh, wow. Okay, and what do you need on the other end of that? Is it just browser-driven, or is there other software that goes with it?
No, so you will use on your PC, you will use something called PCC, which is a remote control software, and that allows you to transmit audio to it, receive audio from it, key up the transmitter, and in the case of the 101, you get the full frequency display on the screen, the full waterfall display.
Right, and are we actually seeing a move, if you like, from Yaesu more towards the SDR side, or is the older range still being developed as well?
No, the older range is still being developed, and we have a range of conventional analog radios as well.
Good, and availability, and I know you can't tell me the price because you don't know it yet, you've already told me that, but when is the MP version of the FTDX 101 becoming available for at least UK or Europe?
So we expect it to be around 2 to 3 months' time. It should be available.
So a nice Christmas present for somebody.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot, Carl.
Thank you.
We also caught up with ICQ podcast listener Carl Hines, DB7 Bravo November, and we chatted about his opinion on the new rigs from Ellicraft and Yaesu.
Yeah, of course, it's the Yaesu FT101DX. That's the first time you really could touch him. Last year, Don was sitting there, and it was under glass, and he was sitting in front so that nobody could go near to the glass. And this time they have, I think, 3 devices sitting there, and one already has an antenna, so you can get the feeling of the knobs. And on the other side, it's the Elecraft K4. So and what was the interesting thing is I liked the Yaesu, and I thought, so maybe this is something I would buy the next years. So and we took, my son and I took a look to the Yaesu, and we thought, how to do this and how to do this and how to change this and so on. And we got 5 minutes on the K4, and it was clear how to do this. So it was much easier to operate without having a manual or without having a menu. So you could do with the touch screen, so you touch the frequency and move it, and the frequency moves. So that's how you think to do it, and it works in this way. And if you do it on the Yaesu, it looks more complicated. So I don't know if you read the manual, maybe it's easier, but without the manual, it was quite complicated to operate it.
Yeah, I guess whenever you change from one make of radio to another, though, it gets complicated. But I understand what you mean. The fact, especially for the younger generation, like yourself and your son.
Myself? I'm 62. Sorry.
You're still younger than me, so you're younger generation.
Not young anymore.
But I was saying that, the fact it's touchscreen and you're used to the phones where you just swipe it or you just touch it. And I think Yaesu I think their screen is touchscreen, but still the majority of the thing is knobs. So it's interesting. Different people like different things, I guess.
Yeah, it's knobs, and the touch part does not work like you expected. So you can touch it, and it goes to this frequency. But when you put your finger on the screen and move your finger, it does not follow you. So you have to touch again on the next time, and then it's working. So this is, it is touch. But it's different as you expected.
And did you tell the people on the Yaesu stand about that? Because that they can change with a software change.
Yeah, that's what we asked them, and they of course said it's the first time they built up an SDR system itself. It's the first time with a touchscreen and so on. So they think there will come more in the future. But that was interesting to see. So the Elecraft had the panorama device in before. Before with the K3 it was 2 devices, but they all have this learning phase how to handle this, and so now they put them all into one device, and so they are one step further.
Yeah, we saw the K4 in Xenia, and we were very impressed as well. Martin.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Carl, I was lucky enough to have 3-4 hours with the Yaesu at Yaesu UK. They allowed us to come down one Saturday and record a video on the FT101DX. And I got quite familiar and quite happy using it. I think Chris Howard did an interview with Eric at Xenia on the Elecraft K4. Unfortunately, I couldn't get in front of it because there was lots going on, and I let Chris do that one. But I think sometimes you don't get enough time at a show in the nicest possible way to really get a feel for it. And that's where I think, if you've got somebody who's an early adopter at a club who goes out and buys rigs, you really need to spend some time playing with a rig like that, whichever one it is. I mean, if you're going to start spending in excess of €3,000 on a particular radio, you're going to make sure you're happy with it and it does what you want. So I often think these shows are very nice because they show very pretty things, but you often don't get long enough to actually get the use out of them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's right. But I think this is the other thing about Yaesu. On several fairs, you don't see Yaesu. So Yaesu, I think in the UK there is a Yaesu office, but in Germany there is no more. So the next repair station are always distributors, but not Yaesu itself. So Yaesu is not visible on Hamfest. Yaesu is not coming to their users. So if you want to buy something, you could buy, but Elekraft does the different things. So they sponsor expeditions. They show the devices on small Hamfest in the US. And give the people the chance to play with the devices. So and if your friend has one and say, oh, that was great, that is the best way to sell it. And Yaesu is like more like an electronic company. You can see the device, and if you like it, you can buy it. But they do not get in contact with hams to show where is the benefit of their devices, so that your friend will say, I get a chance to operate it, and it's so nice, and I want to have it. So I think this is something Yaesu needs to learn, that the ham radio market is a little bit different as the normal electronic market. People amateur radio people like to touch the device and like to see it and like to make a QSO and say, oh, that is great.
Yeah, I agree with you in some ways. Certainly in the UK, because Yaesu are based in the UK, we see them at ham radio rallies. And Elekraft being a US company, you will see them at US rallies. It's a shame there isn't more distributors throughout Europe, but I think in many instances, most companies work on about 3 distributors, or main distributors around the world, one in Europe, one in the US, and one in the Southern Hemisphere. So they're the main distributors, and if unfortunately, if Yaesu had been based in Germany, you'd be seeing them all the time, and I wouldn't. So it's an awkward one. I understand where you're coming from, though.
The ICQ podcast. Come for a moment. Stay for an hour.
Well, thanks to Ed Durant, DD5 Lima Papa, for visiting Ham Radio 2019 and grabbing interviews that were different from what we saw at Dayton, Ohio. Hopefully, as always, some interest for you guys there. Particular thanks there to Carl Hines, DB7 Bravo November, who joined us for a chat there on a Sunday morning, and it was good to hear his opinion on the Yaesu and the Elekraft rigs, wasn't it?
Yeah, it certainly was, Colin, and in fairness, Carl made it to the thing. It's a shame a few others didn't. Chris forgot, or he got the timing wrong, so he apologises for not making it. But in fairness, great chat with Carl again. And as I say, best wishes going forward, Carl, to yourself and your family. One thing I need to update you on, Colin, is I mentioned lots of people I saw on Cyprus. And at the risk of not upsetting anybody, I forgot Noz. Noz is a great guy. Sorry, Noz, I forgot you to add you in the what I've been up to. So please accept my apologies. And anybody else's name I forgot to add in. Great people on Cyprus that gave me lots of hospitality. So this is a blanket thank you to everybody.
How could you forget Noz? Noz is as sound as a pound, as we say. How could you forget him?
Oh no, he's a great guy. Great guy.
He certainly is. I remember being out on the coast with him probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and certainly a fine radio operator. So Noz, to say hello, and so I hope you remember that lovely morning out on the Cypriot coast working, across into the Mediterranean. So certainly Noz, hi from me as well. Okay, let's do a wrap up here to the show. So, as always, thanks to Chris Howard, Mike 0 TCH, Dan KB6 November Uniform, Frank K4 Foxtrot Mike Hotel for joining you on the round table. Thanks again to Ed for the working for the feature there. Thanks a lot for that, buddy. I appreciate that. As always, you can check us out on the usual places between now and the show. So icqpodcast.com and check out the donation page. Say no donor in this episode, but you can do your bit to keep us advert free by visiting the donation page. The Facebook group, our Twitter handles at Colin Butler and at M1RB if you're so inclined, or check us out on LinkedIn. The video is still available from our visit from HMS Belfast from the last episode's feature, and you can find it by going to youtube.com/ICQ podcast. And so appreciate that. And as always, guys, feel free to get involved, send us your thoughts, feelings, etc. by contacting the contact us section on the website and dropping us a line. Okay, then I think that about wraps up everything here we got to do here, apart from one very last important thing, and that's making Mrs. B a cup of tea, and hopefully you've been to the shops and bought some chocolate biscuits.
I certainly have. Mrs. B will be home from work soon, so we'll sort the tea. Oh, sorry. And Mrs. B will be home from work soon, so we'll sort the tea and chocky bicky out soon. So all in all, Colin, another good episode. And I'll say 73 to you and 73 to our listeners.
Exactly, and we'll do it all again in a fortnight's time. 73 is all. Bye-bye.
Bye.